scarcities that happen naturally. There's a disaster, there's a flood, all kinds of things can happen. But here you have a system that artificially creates scarcity so that then you get people who really are fighting for the spoils, and since there's so much control from up on top, it is a way of maintaining the disunity and the confusion of those on bottom.
What it is emasculated men. And what do men do when they're emasculated? They compensate with hypermasculinity. When you leave, particularly men, with no options, they get violent and they get destructive. I don't care where you're talking about. Go to Russia. What do you think the Russian gangs are? Go to Northern Ireland. Go anywhere in the world. These devastating dynamics are engineered.
So our experience of money as being scarce is an artifact of the money system. In a properly run monetary system, there will be no scarcity of money.
There's not enough to go around and someone somewhere is always going to be left out gives us this very difficult and unfortunate permission to leave people out. Because if someone's always going to be left out, then it's your job and my job to accumulate more than we possibly could ever use or need, to distance ourselves from ever being one of those poor people who gets left out.
At the point of view of the corporation, getting more and more and more, that is driven in part by greed, in part by the dynamic of trying to get profits, capitalism, but it's also driven by fear. Because if you don't do it, if you can't expand faster than the next corporation, they will get research money, and they will get marketing money, and they will beat you and may drive you out of the game.
You're not quite as efficient in this plant as you ought to be by our calculations. This is the banker speaking. And so therefore, we're going to either raise the cost of your credit and drive you to do bad things to your workers or to your community or to the environment in order to boost that return and boost your stock price. And we will lend to you under those terms only.
The nice way of saying it is nice guys finish last. If you're callous to the effects on others, you have a potential to rise. The odds are that you can compete your way up. If you care and are socially concerned about others, you're at a tremendous disadvantage. So I think the competitive dynamic that we have does sort of weed out a set of people for success. But I would say that what it weeds out for success is not competence, not creativity, not intelligence, but callousness far more often.
Well, I think if you look at how economies actually function, they function with both competition and cooperation. And so I think both can coexist. We have probably leaned more toward competition, and I think we could use more cooperation. But I think either one in its extreme can be dysfunctional.
Competition does have its place in urging us to our highest level of performance and fulfillment. But health is dependent on cooperation. We don't have the liver competing with the heart for blood and for nutrients. There is this inherent cooperation that leads to the health of the entire entity.
The nature to which people are able to be social, civilized, sympathetic, is quite amazing, and it's in contradiction to the nature of the money.
It's interesting that anybody, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're aggressive naturally or very sweet and cooperative naturally, if you're going to have to make the money to live, I make you a prediction. You're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to compete for it. Is that in nature out there? Is that the world is that way? Or is it the money system that's between us and the world that is that way? I make the second claim.
A lot of diversity here. We're starting to see a whole different array of plants come into being. So there's some lupins here. There's some strawberry, small wild strawberry. This broom with the yellow blooms on it. This is a nitrogen fixer and is stabilizing these slopes. And decomposters here, they're harvesting that broom.
So what are these ants doing for the whole situation?
Well, basically they're breaking carbon down. They're taking carbon, gathering it together, and breaking it down. You got a great part of the Umbellifera family. This is yarrow. They're deep-rooted, so they bring a lot of minerals up from the parent material. They go below this sand and dig into more than silica to bring up things to the surface that'll nourish these other plants. So you got a lot of complexity here. A lot of plants cooperating with each other to try and create an ecosystem that stabilizes this shifting sand surface here.
Ecosystems are based much more on cooperation than they are on competition. We tend to deify cutthroat competition. And there is some competition in nature, but there's much more cooperation.
Species move from competition to cooperation because they discover the economic value of cooperating. It is cheaper, more efficient. All you have to do is look at our Pentagon budget and see that a tiny fraction of it would really develop countries that we've been leveling instead. Very much more cost effective to make friends of them than it is to keep them as enemies.
We have 8 billion people on the planet. There's 1 billion of those that are happy to work but can't. There are no jobs for them.
Some would argue that these people are unemployed because they lack skills or because they don't want to work, and that may be true in a few cases, but in the vast majority, that's not the reason why they're impoverished. The reason why they're impoverished is because you have this scarcity of money.
The first question I ask is, am I going to be stuck being a janitor forever? And they were like, oh no, there's all kinds of chance for advancement. You could go to calling. We've got data entry. You've got all kinds of computer skills. And then 4 months passed and I addressed it again and got a different story. It was like I had no value. My self-esteem was going down because I can do more than just clean bingo tables and clean toilets.
If you have an economy which is generating only a limited number of good jobs, are you surprised that parents feel it's really important to teach their kids how to compete on every level? They want their kids to get those jobs. You know, another kind of response would be to get together and say, hey, wait a second, there's a problem with the structure here. But, you know, we have a very individualistic response to the problem.
At the time of the Civil War in the United States, which is a very interesting turning point, midway in the Industrial Revolution, industrial rebuilding of the United States, slavery in the South was obviously condemned, but the counter-argument was something they called wage slavery. And what did that mean? It meant that you had no protection. You could be fired at will. Without a job, you could be thrown out on the street, and you were a wage slave was the term.
13th Amendment, which says you cannot treat a human being as a commodity for buying and selling. And the new economics is you can no longer buy or sell labor, but you can rent it. So the wage is you're renting somebody.
The word job was invented in the industrial age in England. It didn't exist before. And it describes a pile of things that one does for money. Work is a very, very old concept. And work is something you do because you're passionate about, or because you're good at it, or because that's what you love doing. A job is specifically something you do for pay. Pay in national money, to be precise.
Tell me, why are you interested in this job? I need a steady job, Mr. Wiley, with a chance to go places.
People like Woodrow Wilson and Abraham Lincoln said that if America became that sort of society, the society in which everyone became, the vast majority became wage laborers or wage slavery as they used to call it, we would lose the freedoms that made America great.
If you, say, were in such conditions of duress, that you just couldn't survive except by being a slave, you might sign a contract that says, okay, I'll be your slave. That's by your own free will. I mean, are we going to take that seriously? Under some pathological assumptions, I suppose.
We live in an economy which takes 80% of each new generation and educates that 80% to obey orders and to endure boredom, and stifles their creativity, and stifles their capacities, and curtails them. They are systematically crushed by a system which does what? Which fills slots. And 80% of the slots need people who just do rote, tedious, repetitive labor, at least at work, and therefore are acclimated to doing that.
Most of my jobs I've never really liked. I've never said, this is great, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah, there was a job I really, really despised, but the money was really good.
It wasn't the job that I wanted, and my daily life and my work experience was just not making me happy.
I mean, you could say, you know what, this is a terrible job, I don't want to do it. It's a free market, you have total choice to not show up under these terrible conditions. At the same time, if you don't, little problem here, you're not going to eat, and your family isn't going to eat. And that's why people do it.
Yeah, I really hated that job.
I think many of us nowadays feel the way Charlie Chaplin role modeled long ago, like cogs in wheels, that we're stuck in the machinery of our economy, that we have very little choice. We have to work a 9-to-5 job and watch a little TV and go to bed and do it all over again.
I want to have a more rewarding experience, I guess, with life, and based not just to make money and to say, oh, this year I made $10,000 more than last year.
I think that this whole idea of the middle class in this country is ridiculous. There is no middle class. There's no such thing as that. They're the working poor too, because their whole lifestyle is financed to death. They have the big, beautiful house, the 2 lovely cars, they're putting their kids through college. But if they get fired from their job, all of that stuff is over.
I've always been kind of a cynical person, so I guess to me, doing jobs to just support yourself is just pretty much what life is about.
It's that we do the work we do so often simply for the money. Now, since we're all chasing this money around, it utterly patterns our society.
So hardly realizing it, they come into their purchasing stage and are off on a wild, non-stop ride. It's a happy-go-spending world, reflected in the windows of the suburban shopping centers where they go to buy.
I claim there's enough work in the world for everybody, forever. But if you start to have to pay for it with a national money that's scarce, that's making it work into a job, that is going to be another question, because someone has to borrow that money in order to pay you.
As we get rid of more and more and more jobs, we may have to get to a point where we redefine the meaning of work. And you're going to have to find other ways for people to support themselves.
Work, there's an infinity of things we can do. We can make every city, every garden, every house a paradise. There's an infinity amount of things to be done to reach there. Don't expect to be paid for it in national money. Don't get that idea. So we have to find another way, what people can do in a post-industrial age.
One of the things about local currency, I think that a lot of people are embracing it because they're starting to understand more about our federal economic system. Federal Reserve notes don't necessarily serve the best interest of local communities, and local currency can help tip the scales back into that mindset.
For some people, if they have river hours and they don't have federal money, we felt like, well, that's fine, we will take them. And it works for us because we have employees here who are willing to be paid in river hours. My name is Mark England, and I'm a registered nurse, and I'm the Director of Clinical Services here at La Clinica. We're not a free clinic, we expect payment, but we also work with people because we understand that people also need to buy food and shelter and other things to keep themselves alive as well.
We don't seek to replace federal money in our communities at all. We are hoping to facilitate more exchange beyond what's possible with federal dollars. It's another kind of faith and another kind of currency, and it's faith in your neighbors, it's faith in local business, it's faith in your region and what it can offer you, and that there is true wealth there to be had.
Not many of us remember that this country was built on decentralized issue of currency. By and large, what it meant was that the various regions of the United States could develop in a decentralized way according to the resources and the skills that they had in a region. And that's what created the great diversity and economic wealth of this country.
Complementary currency, in my definition, is an agreement in a community to use something, just about anything that they can agree on, as a medium of exchange. That's other than national conventional money. The first thing that one has to understand about complementary currencies is that there are as many different rules that you can want to invent. In national money, there's only one. Okay, that's basically the same worldwide. In complementary currencies, different communities agree on different rules. It is complementary because they do not replace national money.
A local currency is something that is issued at the time that it's backed by goods and services in our community. And when people advertise in the River Hours Trade Directory, they actually sign a commitment that says that they are backing in whole or in part that currency with their goods or services that they're offering, and that they're also agreeing to accept in whole or part some local currency. So when you get River Hours, it's backed by people in your community, and that's tangible.
Local currency is a way of encouraging people, inducing people to spend locally. And it's also a way to help people to support one another in the local economy when they maybe do not have any money.
It's been probably a third to half of my income. Whether it was working for people or just the advertising in the directory and getting my name out, or word of mouth has been huge.
Their offerings, their inventory, the money often hits their cash register and then heads straight out of town to the central office in Ohio or wherever. River Hours is hopelessly and happily bound to our community. That value always remains here, and I think people understand that.
Alan Watts in the 50s wrote a critique of the Depression where he said, look, the economy went flat because everybody found there was no money. There's plenty of work needed doing, plenty of people wanted work, plenty of goods in the stores, but nobody could afford them, nobody could pay for them because we had no money. And he said this was like going to build a building. And you've got the materials, you've got the tools, you've got the skills, you've got the drawings, you've got the planning permission, you've got the weather, you've got the will. No inches. Damn. We had a bunch of inches, but then big project on the other side of town, they're using all the inches. We don't have any inches because all the inches went over there. I guess we're out of work. Well, that's exactly what we do with money.
That's my clearest
realization is that there is plenty of work that needs to be done in this valley. And there are all kinds of people who need work to make ends meet. They need work. They could contribute to the community. There's all kinds of things to do. So we have the work that needs to be done. We have the workers. What is it that's missing? You know, pieces of paper that say, I'll do this for, in exchange for other goods.
People are short of and hungry for a tangible way to just plug into a sense of community. And that feeling, that attitude, I believe is accomplished transactionally through using this currency system.
Once they get... And the soil here is interesting because now, this is all dune stuff, but now we've got this humus building up, holding the sand together. You can still see the sand grains in there. So these dunes have been established for a while. So they're totally covered in vegetation. Everything has reached a certain amount of stability. All of these plants combined are sharing the rhizosphere with each other. Their roots are intertwined, and they're contributing different things. These plants root associate either with, probably here it's a fungus, that can actually take nitrogen out of the atmosphere and fix it on their roots. Can actually fix it so that the pine tree can get it. The pine tree in exchange will, through photosynthesis, create sugars and send it down and feed that to the fungus. So there's this interaction going on all the time that is mutually beneficial.
What we're doing is really reinventing the exchange process. We need to mediate exchanges in a different way than we've done before. The debt money system creates money on the basis of interest-bearing debt. It's not debt itself that is at fault. It's the interest component that's attached to the debt. And the interest component does not get created when banks create money on the basis of collateral.
Some people are really Luddite about this, and they think, well, we should be back to gold and silver, and that's a metal, precious metal that doesn't change with time. That's all nonsense in my view. Just nonsense. And a lot of earnest, good people devote their lives to trying to prove that somehow the world is going to hell because we have this symbolic money rather than the real thing. I would say don't waste your brain cells on that subject. It doesn't lead anywhere, and it's actually quite reactionary if you think about it.
We have to start thinking about money as an information medium, not as a substantial thing. It has been merely an information medium for a couple of 100 years in most respects. But nonetheless, we've stuck ourselves with the idea that there's only so much money. That's the core of its reality concept. That all there is so many trillion dollars or euros or yen, and what we're doing is juggling them. Comes from you, goes to me, goes to him, goes to her. It's to and fro, and we're juggling with a real thing. Therefore, we are always going to have shortages.
How can we mediate our exchanges without creating a pervasive sense of scarcity? Are paper currencies like river hours really the best way to solve this problem, or are there other, more effective approaches?
River hours print their currency, and as soon as you print a currency, you have, in fact, in my opinion, created a problem because you've created a limited supply of currency, which means there's only so much currency as there are notes in circulation. And then you end up with the same problem you have if you have something like a currency backed by gold, which is there's only so much gold. A mutual credit system, there's unlimited currency available in potential, and that's one of its great strengths.
In a mutual credit system, each person has an account. And at some times your account may be positive, at other times your account may be negative. Now, it's this allowance for a negative balance that is the fundamental feature of a credit clearing system. This negative balance represents credit that's been extended to you by the rest of the community.
My name is Francis Ailey. I'm the president of Fourth Corner Exchange. We are a mutual time exchange, mutual credit exchange system. We have over, as of today, 650 members, and about 400 of those are in Bellingham.
I'm Jean Brecken. I offer reading out loud, singing, playing the piano, word processing, writing, and office work.
Hi, I'm Lynette Allen, and I'm offering websites, design and development.
One of my favorites is I have this great apple tree, so I have a lot of apples that I have sold for time dollars and changed a 4-year-old's concept of where apples come from. And don't come from the store, they come from a tree, and Grandma was very happy that he learned that.
In a case of mutual credit systems, the rule is, the game is, I do something for you, I get a credit, you have a debit. The sum of our two is 0. So, in other words, net, we've done nothing. But I have a credit and you have a debit.
I, as a seller, may allocate to you some good or service that you need at the time. I get a credit to my account, you get a debit to your account. Your debit means that you owe something to the community of traders in our credit clearing circle. My credit balance means that the circle owes something to me.
I've really been enjoying a lot of things. Chicken soup from my friend Mary Stanton. I buy the chickens and she makes the soup. It's wonderful.
With my credits, I can go and get the cookies of my neighbor, and you can work in her garden to pay for your debit. We've created a currency between the 4 of us. Try that to do with dollars. It doesn't work that way, does it? I need to go and borrow it, or I need to earn it, competing with everybody else to get it. Okay? In this game, we created ourselves.
In a mutual credit system, everyone has an account. This account can go positive and it can go negative. When Bob repairs Andrew's hotel, Bob receives a credit and Andrew receives a debit. Bob can then use that credit to buy catering from Christine. Andrew works off his debit by providing lodging for Daniel. When Daniel does dental work for Christine, the credit and debit are cleared. No hard cash was needed, and everyone gained something in the transaction.
It's like this network. It provides more security for me, just knowing that I'm part of Fourth Corner Exchange. And for instance, during the winter, part of my fence blew down in a storm, and I was able to find somebody, a carpenter, who came up all the way from Mount Vernon and put that fence up for me within a few days.
Over the long run, we expect that each person is going to put in as much as they take out and take out as much as they put in. But we allow these temporary imbalances in order to facilitate this exchange process. This is the fundamental function of money.
As more people join the mutual credit clearing circle, this process can become more dynamic. Ultimately, no matter how big the circle gets, the value people contribute should remain equal to the value they take out.
This is money created not by a hierarchy, but is a medium of exchange that's created between us. Okay? We create the medium of exchange. Second, there's no interest. Okay? Third, it's not scarce.
When you start trading in Fourth Corner Exchange, many people talk about experiencing shift in consciousness. There's not a scarcity of that currency, so there's much less competition. So you end up with a completely different experience, and people talk about how cooperative, supportive. People are really concerned about your well-being.
So the primary distinction between money that is tight, scarce, limited, comes from them, and money that is free, available, sufficient, and comes from us, is that with one, we are in fear and greed and competition, and with the other, we behave like sensible human beings. We are more generous, we're more comfortable, we're more giving, we're more willing to receive.
It's made me a lot more willing to share my home, open up my space. I'm not as afraid of people as I once was.
I think that this organization has the potential of making things really livable as time gets harder in the future, not only in terms of the goods and services, but in terms of the connections in the community.
Community needs to become our safety net, I believe, the way the economy is going. I only thought that everything I did, I'd have to, pay out of my pocket for some way. So now I realize I have these options. So I kind of see it as a relationship-based consumption.
There are literally thousands of grassroots, person-to-person networks like Fourth Corner Exchange all over the world. However, the concept of mutual credit is not limited to the grassroots. Mutual credit has also been successfully applied in mainstream business. The commercial barter industry now oversees $30 billion a year in trade. 240,000 businesses in the U.S. alone participate in a barter system. These networks use mutual credit to help businesses make better use of their capacity while saving on their cash expenditures.
Well, my name's Dave Wallach. Been involved in the commercial barter business as a member since 1972. I started my own enterprise in 1979. A company called American Trade Association here in the Bay Area. Well, it's actually a process. It's a business process. Simply put, it makes saleable what is unsold, wasted, and ignored in our economy.
But in my opinion, there's always an empty table in a restaurant, just like there's always an empty room in a hotel, so you need to fill it. And if you fill it by trade, I look at it just like, it was cash, because you're going to order a nice dinner, a nice bottle of wine, and I'm going to spend that. Just if, if it was a good ad somewhere, or a taxi top, or whatever it was. John's Grill became famous when it was a setting in the novel by Dashiell Hammett, which was The Maltese Falcon. So John's Grill has been in business since 1908.
My name is Kaz. That's my nickname. My real name is Richard Kazmaier. I've been in the wine business about 20 years. I was the first organic grower of grapes up here in Sonoma Valley. And we're in the town of Kenwood. And I've been using barter for almost 15 years.
Excess capacity in business, simply put, is business that they could do but are not doing. One example would be like a printer. And his capacities are press time. So he's got these presses that he's paid a lot of money for. They're sitting on the floor, and they're running half the time. He's making a profit doing that. But they're only running half the time. That means he's got a 50% excess capacity.
All right, this is Club Sportiva. We're a luxury car share club, and as you can see behind me here, we've got some really exciting cars. At Club Sportiva, our members have access to drive the cars, so it's like a timeshare for sports cars. Mario Andretti, the famous Formula One race car driver, is a member of Club Sportiva. Dick Gordon is an Apollo 12 astronaut. He's another member who's been on board since 2003 or 2004.
So we joined Biz Exchange about roughly 2 years ago, and it was really quickly a good fit for the club. And it was kind of an easy decision to join. And I know for our first year we were a very big client for them because a lot of their members found our services to be a good fit, and we did a lot of marketing and advertising through their company, as well as some catering through their clients. So it was a kind of a perfect match that immediately, once the fire was stoked, it was going quickly.
You could buy things that you're presently paying cash for. It could be legal service, it could be printing, it could be automotive repair, dental, medical. Thousands of different items are represented. So it makes sense that if they could exchange that excess capacity for goods and services they're paying cash for, that they would make a profit doing that.
I'll sell my wine, and then for that, we've had a dentist, chiropractor, electrician, plumber, a roof repair guy, printing of brochures, business cards, silk screening of shirts. We've used a pretty good gamut of services.
For the small entry price to get into the network, which I think it was $100, I don't know what it was. It was nominal. It was almost, that shouldn't be even a consideration. It's really more, well, how would you spend your dollars, your BizX dollars, once you start having dollars to spend? And if it's on things you either would spend otherwise anyway, or on things you'd like to spend on but you haven't, it should be a no-brainer.
Through the use of bringing this efficiency into the economy and utilizing what has been wasted and ignored, we bring tremendous efficiencies to the economy. So if we take wasted resources and able to turn them into something productive, we now have reached a sociological goal also. So what we're the ultimate business ecologists.
You can't even begin to talk about how do we think like an ecosystem until you're aware of your place in your own culture, in your own society, that you aren't the only thing worth consideration, that everything around you is part of you, and that you have a responsibility for those around you. And in order to be aware of your place, you have to look at the place and understand the place, right? And it's, Earth, planet Earth.
There is without a doubt a mega crisis that we're facing in the coming years. And the big elephant in the living room is the money problem. And unfortunately, most people who are active in the sustainability movement and the environmental movement don't understand the nature of this problem. And we're not going to make any significant headway with sustainability or restoration of the environment until we solve the money problem.
This is part of the hallmark of a pre-democratic society, is that it functions by taboo. We have certain assumptions, we accept them, we do not question them. If you want to be part of the tribe, you will speak the language of the tribe and you will follow the rules of the tribe.
I think that we will evolve to, number one, become aware of the blind spot of that what money does to us. That our money is actually like an iron ring that we put through our nose, and it's leading us in directions that may not be the ones that we want to go consciously.
It is like the playing cards. It is something that maybe we all kind of know in the back of our minds that it might be like that. It's just one of those things that you know, but you don't really want to know.
Most people, most of us, get up in the morning for things other than just money. We care about things like family and, if you will, betterment, development as whole human beings.
People are not fools forever. And I think we're going to see very strong reaction to this as the pain grows and as the difficulties grow. And that's the time to begin building serious ideas about where we go for the future.
I think we have the opportunity to bring forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on this planet. And I think that is the power and possibility of our time.
I think we can use money as a tool, as a servant to what we want to become, rather than be victims.
We don't need to have all this suffering around money. We can free ourselves from it. And the economy can be much healthier and much more of service to all of us.
Time to become aware. Time to have a consciousness of our potential. And I think our potential as humans is infinite. Let's not limit ourselves through the medium of exchange. time to wake up.
There are 7 billion of us in the world today, and we're facing some huge problems. But talk doesn't help someone out of poverty. Awareness doesn't reduce pollution, or grow food, or heal the sick. That takes doing. The solutions are here. Great inventions that generate clean energy, that make fresh water, that improve our health. This is the story of what we've been doing. I'm Manoj Bhargav, the founder of 5 Hour Energy.
Have you seen this little bottle by the cash register? 5 hours. That's a weird amount of time. But I can't drink any more than this. I don't have the energy.
Top 10 Rick Perry excuses. I had a 5-hour energy drink 6 hours before the debate.
I have this idea for this drink. Within 2 months, we had it on shelves. But it was growing bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden, it became one of the largest consumer products in the world.
5-hour energy.
Sales got up 12%.
Sold over $1.5 billion.
90% of the market share.
It's cracked the Forbes billionaire list.
But I realized, oh my God, we're making a lot of money here. What do I do with this? I'll tell you how we work in our company. Somebody comes to me with a project or something needs to be done, and the first question I ask is it useful? How is it useful? Okay? And if it's not useful, it better be entertaining. And if it's not useful or entertaining, there's only one other basket left, and that's useless. 5 hours is a lot of things for me because it's also the enabler that gives us an opportunity to do things that other people can't do. This was our first building, which is really more 5 Hour Energy. And then we bought this whole thing. Now we have 10 buildings and 25 acres. One of the buildings out of the 10 buildings is an invention shop, which is called Stage 2. My approach to things is, let's do stuff, invent stuff, make a difference in other people's lives.
Stage 2 works in the area of water, power, health. Our goal is very simple, to deliver innovations which can directly impact humanity. And the only way to do that is to actually go fund it.
Our view is, if you invent stuff that can be used long term, it's probably the most fundamental change you can make. We've put an infrastructure together so that great inventions help the poorer half of the world make their lives better. That's what we define as a great invention. That's the software change. Incredibly, it doesn't take enormous amounts of money. What it takes is just doing the right things and inventing the right things.
My name is Billy Talley, and I run the engineering and operations here at Stage 2 Innovations. Manoj truly believes in giving back. One of his ways that he believes in giving back is coming up with innovations to help people.
Stage 2 is filled with tinkerers, guys that in their garage they don't have cars, they have stuff they're building.
You should see how I got hired. I had actually built a nail gun powered pogo stick, and they thought I'd fit the job well.
And these guys are in heaven. I mean, I think they would work there if I didn't pay them. All right, cool. When Billy first came to us, I said, Billy, whatever you want to buy, go buy it. I think he was in shock because you never tell a guy who likes tools He can buy whatever tools he wants.
We have a very, very well-equipped shop here. There's not much we can't build ourselves.
Manoj has expressed many times, if it doesn't make a big difference, find something else to do. Life is too short to spend it doing things that don't have a real impact. We're here to make a difference.
If you want to do something for the poor half of the world, be here. If it doesn't make us money, but it really changes the lives of people, we're still going to do it. We have the wherewithal to make it a usable product so that people throughout the world can use it.
We strive to be fast to failure. We're going to take something and we're going to run as fast as we can and do what we have to do so we can determine whether we're going to go forward or we're not. These are items that we want to bring out on a large scale that he truly believes in.
In order to make this, if we didn't have this shop, it'd be weeks out. These guys can program it and make it probably in a day. That part is really, really important. We just concentrate on those things that are going to be incredibly useful. And if you come up with something cool that's not, we don't do it. I have no interest. I don't want to be cool. I'm never going to be cool. So that's long gone. My job, I think, is to make complex simple, whereas it seems the consultant's job is to make simple complicated. We use some experts and consultants sometime, and usually when a science guy says it can't be done, to me that's validation that it can. So it's a different, because we define stuff like expert. What's an expert? Expert is someone who knows everything that was. He's really good at what was. And if you ask him about what will be, he says, no, that can't be done because I'm an expert on what was. Well, why do I need you? Because if I wanted to do what was, I don't have a business. So, we do talk to experts just to make sure that maybe they've thought of something or the history of that area is something that we haven't thought of, but we really don't rely on them for the future because that's just silly. To me, the largest area of work for the future, energy and water, are the real solutions to health, livelihood, all of the stuff that goes about it. Most people don't realize in rich countries, but half the world either has no electricity or electricity 2-3 hours a day. Everything requires energy. So you try to look for that which is the one thing that will lead to benefits that are across hundreds of things. So human mechanical energy is so amazing. Why can't we use that to create energy? So we've invented a hybrid bicycle that you pedal for an hour and you have electricity for 24 hours. We call it free electric. The free electric, I think, is the coolest of all our inventions. Not just because it just looks really great, but it's so simple. It's sort of what we try to do is make things simpler and simpler. And yet it's going to maybe have the largest effect of anything in the last 100 years. The reason is, for the poor half of the world, they have electricity 24/7. Electricity is the greatest enabler there is. And we've kept half the world out of it. This enables all of these people who have not been part of the Industrial Revolution. They're still living as if it's 2,000 years ago. All of these people now can become part of a productive society. And this is what will enable them. This solves the problem no matter what happens. Whether it's sun shines or cloudy or night or whatever it is, anything happens, you have electricity. You're never out of electricity. Also, if you look at worldwide, the other side is really interesting.
Hurricane Katrina was a Category 5 monster that became the costliest disaster ever in the U.S.
If a disaster happens, if Katrina hits or some big storm hits, and we've all been through where you had no electricity, the one thing you don't want, you want your cell phone to be always available. You don't want to be out of touch. And you don't want to be in the dark. The worst is being without a cell phone and in the dark. So you're alone in the dark. With this, it can never happen. What people normally do is they'll get a generator, diesel generator. But the problem with the diesel generator is when disaster hits, there's no diesel available. You have this, you will never run out of electricity. And you never generate any pollution. So half the world is not going to generate pollution in their homes. So if you pump for an hour, you're keeping maybe a pound of CO2 out of the air. Right now, we're pumping about 25 billion pounds of matter up in the air every year. And you figure sometime that's going to make a difference? Every year? So what this does is you have electricity for all these people, and it's mechanical. You work for an hour, you have electricity for 24 hours. The only side effect is you get stronger and healthier. There is no other side effect to that. That's the ideal invention. That's why simple stuff is the greatest, because it impacts everything and it doesn't have unintended consequences.
There really is only a few components. You have the basic frame, you have the bicycle gearing, you have the flywheel, you have the battery, and the generator. So it's very, very simple. You know, there's not a whole lot to it, and it's just like riding a bicycle. You know, right. After you get going,
let's see if I can
it's pretty simple.
Okay. So is this the right gear for starting?
Yeah. Well, you're in second gear actually, so you're a little bit tall. So it's like driving your car away in second gear.
Well, actually, I can see it there. That's a better. You lean back.
Yes, that's the whole part about the reclining side.
That's pretty cool.
With human energy and working out a lot of the efficiencies, we're able to go and power 1,050 equivalent watts of lighting and energy power. That's like being able to power 10 100-watt light bulbs. I mean, it's a lot of light.
Wow. So when does this start to get to a point where it's lights up everything?
Well, actually, right about now. Be any time now.
There we go. All right. Is that from me?
Yeah.
Just doing it here?
Yep.
Actually, this isn't bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
This is like where you would set a bike if you were going to exercise?
Yep. And with that, you're still able to charge your cell phone. You're able to charge your tablet. You run a small fan. You know, it really kind of puts some of these things into perspective. Pedal for an hour, and you can have lights, charge your phone, and everything else throughout the night.
This is the cheapest, most practical way of getting electricity throughout the world, no matter where remote location you are. So now all of a sudden, all this whole economy of all of these poor that were not contributing anything to their outside world, now they're all bringing it up. All of a sudden, they're on the internet. You know, they're getting information on all of a sudden, they're getting educated. So the real thing is to get the poor out of their poverty. And one of the basics is energy. I mean, think about it. The poor half stay the poor half because they have no power. They have no energy. That's one of the most fundamental things. That and water. Those are the two biggest things that poor person really needs. Somebody asked me, in the interview, I said, what does an entrepreneur really need? So I said, really only two things. Common sense and a sense of urgency. That's it. And they asked me, who should we learn this stuff for? And my answer was, from your mom. Because she's probably done more management than your MBA professor. Yeah. Because she's got a budget, you got all these kids running around, hard to manage. All of this thing has to be done every day, 7 days a week. Now that's work. That's hard work. That's learning on the job. No matter where somebody stands on global warming or that whole issue, pollution is a problem. I don't care who you are or what your scientific belief system is. We know that that's bad. We need to get rid of it. Is there a way to get totally clean energy that's sort of bullseye of all answers with no pollution and unlimited energy? So our first question was, where's the energy? And there's only one answer, and that's right here. A few miles underneath us is unlimited power, unlimited energy. A few miles down, deeper you go, the hotter it gets. You take that energy and you bring it up. Unlimited, pollution-free. Is there a way to bring up just the energy, just the heat?
You can't use copper wire because it will melt. So we found this material called graphene.
Graphene is a substance that is really made out of graphite, which is like pencil lead. And what they discovered was that if they take one molecule layer at a time off this graphite, that's called graphene, okay? And it has incredible properties.
It's 100 times better conductor than copper. It's lighter than air, stronger than steel.
It transfers heat really efficiently.
If you put 100 degrees here, you get 100 on the other side instantly, and the middle is completely cool.
So the heat that you put in gets all the way there. Whether you go 10 feet or you go miles, you could bring up unlimited energy from deep underground to the surface, pollution-free. And so I approached the graphene guys and I said, could you make me a string? And they looked at me like, why would we make a string? You know, I said, look, a string is the most rudimentary technology, right? If you have a string of something, you can make cloth, you can make walls, you can make rope, you can make a cable. So if you make me a string, I'll put those strings together and make a cable. Then I'll put the cable underneath the ground. And that cable will bring up the heat. And so at first they were a little wary because it seemed too simple.
They have already made the first set of ropes for us, the short ones. They've tested it and found it to work perfectly fine. We are using that and working with Stage 2 in Michigan. Stage 2 has a platform we are building where we'll test everything out, and then that product will be commercially manufactured and propagated from Singapore.
This would be the greatest invention maybe ever, because if you can get unlimited energy from underneath the earth, pollution-free, that's everything. That's everything. You have no pollution, you have no fossil fuel issues, you have no, CO2 coming out, greenhouse gases, none of that. All of that is gone. Here's the answer. Yet no money, no research, no resources are being put to this. So this is a sort of a teaser to say, look guys, in your country, you want energy security? Do this. You have unlimited energy without having to import anything. Now, some countries are not going to like this very much because those who export, fossil fuels are going to be pretty upset with me. But I've kind of transferred all this technology, all of our thoughts to Singapore, so that there's a place that's neutral that is then going to give it to the rest of the world. And so this is to encourage people to say, look, if you want energy security, put resources in this. Energy is the great equalizer. If energy was plentiful, the poor wouldn't be poor. Our concern here isn't to make people rich. Our concern is, can we get them to make a livelihood? Can we get them to be healthy? Can we get them clean water? If you can get it to that level for the people that don't have it, that's an enormous benefit. Wall Street fellas are so enamored of companies that spend 5% of their sales on research versus 3%. What, is this brains by the pound? It's not about the money. Good stuff doesn't come from money. And history tells us that, and we still chase it. Mobs of PhDs do not come up with great inventions. It's a couple of guys in a garage that have proven that that's not true. And it's usually a couple of people. Throughout history, it's only been a couple of people have come out with the greatest of stuff. And yet we insist that if we have 1,000 PhDs instead of 500, we're going to do it better. It makes no sense.
The drought has left its mark here.
Some communities could soon run out of water entirely.
This is what the Sierra looked like a year ago. But this winter, what a difference. The state now in extreme drought.
Nature's always smarter than we are. Let's say you come up with an invention that makes clean water out of all this huge amounts of salt water that the world has. Water everywhere, not a drop to drink. So we've got all this water, but we can't use it. Now there's a lot of places around the world, whether it's India, Africa, China, everywhere, there's a shortage of water. And one of the reasons we went after water is because it is totally fundamental to human life.
All right. Spray bars are holding. Starting to make distillate. Cool.
Where we are right now is the RAIN project. This equipment, what it does, it turns seawater or any dirty water into fresh water.
Well, one of the reasons why we got involved in the RAIN project is we saw a lot of lacking technologies in the market to generate what we call high quality water, which can be used for agriculture, drinking, and industrial applications. But more importantly, it does not require any operational support.
All right, start spinning other parts.
The reason we called it the RAIN project basically mimics nature. It heats water, you have water vapor, and then you take that moisture into a different compartment, and then you distill it. The steam or vapor turns into water. So it takes energy to heat the water, and then the energy is released when you turn it back to water. So we take that energy and recycle it back to heating the water again. This little bitty machine here can do 1,000 gallons an hour. Some of the great things about it compared to what the technology is today is, one, it has no parts that are consumables. No screens or no membranes that go bad. And it can be made to make distilled water or any level of clean water. Whereas current technology will only take seawater and turn it into drinking water, but it will not turn it into water that can be used for agriculture. It still has too much salt.
This was our prototype version from 6 months ago. We learned off this version, we added some new ideas and concepts, and we built to what we believe is our next version to go into the field for commercial use.
Billy came out of automotive, so everything is made with that discipline in mind, that you're going to build a plant, and then you're going to have pop hundreds of these out every day.
As we call it, we can cookie cutter it. So we can stamp out thousands upon thousands of them.
The world's requirements are staggering, so you need to be able to build thousands of these, instead of one plant that takes 15 years to build. We don't have the time for that.
We're able to take, seawater, undrinkable, unusable for anything, and turn it into complete drinking water, literally in a matter of minutes. And the beauty is, it's a very self-contained system. You don't need a lot of infrastructure to do it. If you move something in a modular basis, you need the hoses to hook up for the water, a couple of tanks to collect the water, and electricity to run it. So it's very easy and modular system to be able to put in anywhere in the world. And when you're done, you have lovely, fresh, clean water. It's warm enough to make tea right now, but good, fresh, ready to go.
Great. How is it?
It's good. It's good distilled water. It's this water right here is probably at a level almost to pharmaceutical grade water.
Wow.
And that's one of the other beauties is we can raise or lower what the level we want to. But this is very, very, very pure water right now.
From fresh, clean water comes food, comes livelihood for farmers, comes health.
This is the first time exceptional drought has ever been declared in California. These before and after pictures show where water levels should be and where they are today.
Whether you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter. If you don't have water, you have to move or die. That's going to happen across the world. We have to work on water. There's no choice. So in California, I mean, right now they're not looking at it. Nobody wants to say it. But if you don't get water, if you don't solve this problem, California becomes a desert. Now we're looking at it and saying, instead of one big desalination piece of equipment, you have a farm of these. It can either be put on the shore next to the ocean, or you create this barge which has